Hey everyone, welcome back to 996 The Howl. Things are about to pop in the off season. In 2 weeks we got the NHL draft. Then a couple days after that you got NHL free agency. Already some trades are happening. Shea Weber was traded. A lot of people speculated that Arizona, the cap graveyard, would acquire Shea Weber, but he goes to Vegas. So, I kind of want to get a video going just to see for you folks to see where I am at in terms of what the Coyotes should do, who should they target, who should they keep, who they should just walk away from and forget that ever happened, like a bad night in Vegas or something. But let's start with the restricted free agents. These are players that the Coyotes own. These players can't walk away to another team all willy-nilly. They could get offer sheeted, but it's really rare and only in cases where the team can afford the RFA that they have. But, considering the Coyotes need $13 million to reach the cap floor, they could afford all these players if they choose to send them an offer. We'll start with the big two. I was going to say three, but it's big two. Lawson Crouse and Barrett Hayden. Crouse should be looking for his big payday, not in terms of he's going to make so much money, but I think this contract might be the best contract in terms of value he'll ever get in his career. I think he should strive for like a 5-year, some stability. He likes living in Arizona. He's got a girlfriend or a wife and some cute dogs. If I was the Coyotes, I would also be in favor of at least a 4 or 5-year deal. In terms of dollar value, I don't want to see a number close to 5. I'm okay with 4.5, but I think, real value for Crouse should be around $4 million. The Coyotes should be going for $4 million. I'm sure Crouse wants to hit that $5 million, but he's still got a lot to prove. He had a pretty good season under Andre Tourigny, a career year season, I should say. So, he's taking steps forward, and I think, $4.5 million, sort of like what Dvorak and Chychrun got, that seems a bit fair to me. I don't want that number creeping up to 5 or over $5 million for Lawson Crouse. Moving on to Barrett Hayden, this is going to be a bridge deal for sure, like bona fide bridge deal. Hayden showed a lot of good promise under Andre Tourigny, just like Lawson Crouse did. His first main season in the NHL for Barrett Hayden wasn't in the doghouse like in Rick Tocchet years. He was on the penalty kill. He was taking face-offs. He was an important player for the Coyotes, and he played pretty much. He got injured at the beginning. Yeah, I was about to say he played a lot of games and didn't get injured, but he did get injured in the beginning. Came back from that injury and really excelled with the Coyotes. You're looking at a 2-year deal. If I'm the Coyotes, I would try to extend that to 3. But being Barrett Hayden, you want a 2-year prove-it deal. You're looking at, for me, under $2.5 million for sure. He doesn't demand $3 million. His numbers and performance to me don't demand $3 or more million. 2.5 is a good number. If I'm the Coyotes, I would go for $2 million. Obviously, Barrett Hayden, you want the more money, but I think around $2 to $2.5 million is fair. 2-year deal. Try to extend that to 3 years if you're the Coyotes, just to get them through the ASU years, if it is 3 or 4 years. Christian Fischer, fan favorite. He showed up to the Tempe City Council meeting. You're looking at $1 million there. I'm not impressed with Fischer. Only keep him because fans love him. I'm starting to get tired a bit of him. He's a big body, but he doesn't really play with that physical edge that I always want him to. He could be a physical, dominant player, but he just doesn't use it to his advantage. He's been the same type of player for the past 2 or 3 years. It seems like he's plateaued. I hope he does get better, but to me, it's like $1 million, maybe 2 or 3 years. If you're the Coyotes, I'm sure he wants close to $2 million, but in the $1 to $2 million range for Fischer seems adequate. Candonine didn't really jump off the page to me. Just re-sign him for the Tucson Roadrunners, I guess. He shouldn't be cracking the Coyotes D lineup with a full, healthy defensive core. Dineen does not make the cut for the Coyotes. You got Gostisbehere, Chychrun, Timmins, Moser. Remember Connor Timmins? And then you got Mayo, who signed a contract. So there's really one spot left, and it should go to Soderstrom or go to another free agent around the league or a trade or something. So signed Deneen, go back to Tucson. It was a bit accelerated that he was playing on the Coyotes, but it was only due to all those injuries. Capobianco, I kind of want to move away from him. I'm really disappointed. He's an offensive defenseman, but he makes a lot of mistakes. I don't like him defensively. He's not strong around the net. I'm ready to walk away from him. If the Coyotes sign him and he plays in the Tucson Roadrunners, I'm okay with that. But shouldn't be making the roster for the Coyotes on the defensive side. To me, Joseph Kojanaj, who we got in the Aiden Hill trade along with a second-round pick, he already signed a contract in Europe, so he's gone. He said in his, once he signed that deal in Europe that the Coyotes organization, they didn't trust him and they didn't make him play a lot of games, which I could have told you that. He was not playing any games, rarely called up. Prosvetov was always called up before him. I believe he showed up maybe in 2 games near the end there, but it's unfortunate he didn't pan out. I was excited that, for Aiden Hill, we did get a second-round pick, but also sort of a replacement in a young goaltender who could improve, but he really didn't. He had awful numbers in Tucson as well. So it's not only the Coyotes that didn't trust Kojanaj, he really didn't perform well, both NHL or American Hockey League. And Prosvetov, they just signed him a couple weeks ago, 1 year, league minimum, $750K. He should be playing in Tucson. I don't want him as a backup for the Coyotes. I feel like he took a step back this season, even though he played a handful of games. He only plays against elite hockey teams. He's never played against a team that was, below a playoff line. He had that one shootout loss to the Avalanche, which was exciting. He played really well. But, I want him to take that next step, to be that Aiden Hill, to get a lot of starts, pick up some wins, be a solid, calm goalie. But he still has a lot to improve on. His tracking of the pucks and his rebound control, I feel he needs to work on it. But glad they signed him for 1 year. It should be Prosvetov and Tendek in Tucson. And then you got Thornton in the Ontario Hockey League, who should be, making a push to play on the Tucson Roadrunners as well. For unrestricted free agents, these are players that their contract has expired and they most recently played with the Coyotes last season. I got the 2 at the top, which I would welcome to be re-signed, obviously for way less money. Anton Roussel, I feel like he's a good fourth-line energy guy. He's got a bit of bite to him. He's a veteran. He gets under the skin of the opposition. I'd welcome him back. He could play on the fourth line or be in the press box, and he doesn't really seem to complain, which is good. And, he already played 1 year in Arizona, so maybe he'll come back and experience the ASU arena. Anton Stroman had a huge offensive season, especially in the last half of last season. His best offensive production in 5 or 7 years. I would welcome him back. He was getting $5 million. I would bring him back at 1.5. But really like him, really calm the defensive side. He was like Nicholas Hjalmarsson, except he got on the scoreboard way more than Hjalmarsson. He could block shots, play in the PK. He never complained, was smiling. He loved to score. Whenever he scored, he would celebrate so hard. So I would bring him back, a good veteran presence on the back end that the Cows really don't have. Of those defensemen I mentioned, Gostisbehere is the closest veteran next to Strawman. So I'd welcome him back. If not, there's a couple D-men here, which I would rather have than Strawman. Kessel, I'm okay to walk away from him. The best case scenario for me would be to re-sign Kessel for 1 year, cheap money, and then trade him at the deadline. Obviously, both parties need to be in accordance with that. Kessel loves Arizona. He loves the locker room. His scoring touch has completely fallen off, but he's still a good passer. He got about 40 assists last season. So maybe he sticks around because he likes it so much. But, he's got one more crack at it here. So maybe he could help the Coyotes out, re-sign for cheap money, and get traded. The reason why he wasn't traded at the last deadline was because it was too much money and it just couldn't work out. And the Coyotes got some dead cap and Brian Little at the deadline, so you only could hold on to so many dead cap contracts. I believe it's 3. That was a long time ago. I think it was Ekman Larson, Kemper, and Brian Little. That was their max amount of contracts they could hold, so they couldn't really retain. It's retained. You only could retain on 3 contracts, so or something like that. But I'm ready to walk away from Kessel. I really didn't want them to trade for Kessel to start with. I made a video saying, why do people want Kessel? I felt he had his worst years in Pittsburgh when Rick Tocchet was the assistant coach. Came to Arizona, had a bad first season, had a great second season. That shortened season, a 56-game season where it was only that one division. He played really well. I think he got 20 goals. Last season, his scoring fell off, like I said, but could still make some great passing plays and a fun guy to have on your team and meme about. But, it's ready to move on. Get some younger guys on that winger position like Michelli or Yannick. We'll see what happens there. Boko Amama, surprised near the end of the season, gets called up from the Roadrunners. Really physical guy, plays on the edge way more than Roussel. I feel like if you could have him and O'Brien rotating the lineup, why not? You could get him for league minimum. Just see where he progresses from there. You don't really lose much from signing him to league minimum. And if it doesn't work out, you could always bury him in the American Hockey League. Satiri, that Finnish goalie that played like 3 games that we stole from the Leafs. Don't resign him. He was pretty much Swiss cheese except for the last 2 games he played. In that Dallas game, they were down 3-0 and came back and won and became a brick wall. And then against Nashville in relief of Vejmelka, where they down like 4-0, came back and won that game too. So he had some brick wall moments for the bulk of the appearances he had for the Coyotes. He was the best Swiss cheese impersonator in my mind. There's no reason to hold on to him. There's other goalies I have that I rather have. And in terms of other ways you could acquire a goalie, like a trade, which I'm pretty sure the Coyotes are going to do. I need a good backup, a veteran presence who could solidify the net and give Vejmelka some much needed rest, because Vejmelka is such an overworked goalie. And you even saw it in the World Championships when he played for the Czech Republic. He had 1 or 2 really bad games, so it was solid the other games. Just he needs some rest. He's not like a 60, 70 game goalie, so we need a better backup than Satiri or Satiri. I'm done with Beagle and Eriksson. It was a great trade that Bill Armstrong did to get rid of OEL and unfortunately Garland, to get Dylan Gunther and acquire these 3 Canuck players in Roussel, Beagle, and Eriksson, because all their contracts are up. So it was just a bad dream and you never have to think about them again. Like I said, I would bring Roussel back, but Beagle, Eriksson, they were just anchors. I'm not sure why Eriksson played so much. He literally did nothing. No physical edge, no offensive production. I really don't know what he was doing on the ice, and I could confidently say that, he will be the most forgettable Coyotes on the ice. Off the ice, the fans would just meme about him. So that's the only reason why I would remember him. Galchenyuk, it was a funny, re-signing last summer. Don't know what's going on with him. I cannot believe he used to be a 30-goal scorer. Just doesn't have the consistency. Rarely saw him take some shots. He's got a wicked shot, but just rarely uses it. Doesn't have the confidence to take that shot. Even on the power play, they were never setting up Galchenyuk for that, one-timer shot at the top of the circle like he used to do. Just don't know what's going on with him. Hopefully he gets another job somewhere else, but not with the Coyotes. Again, opens up some winger positions for some young guys to take control of. And then Yaskin re-signed back in the KHL. That experiment didn't work out. He got injured the 3rd game in, season-ending injury. So, I didn't like what I saw in the few games he played. Too big and too slow for the NHL game. So hopefully he finds success back in Europe, if it is a KHL or another Europe league. So these are some unrestricted free agents, UFAs, in the NHL that I think the Coyotes should get. Like I said, they need $13 million just to be at the cap floor. I would say about $8 or $9 million would go to Krause, Hayden, and Fisher. Let's say Krause gets 4.5, Hayden 2.5, that's 7. Then Fisher $1 million makes it 8, or $1.5 million makes it 8.5. So they still need a little bit to get to $61 million. So let's start with some players that I think Coyotes should go after. Let's start with Tuukka Rask. That's a joke, obviously. I don't know if it's obvious or not. It's Victor Rask, the centerman. I had no idea he was on Seattle. I still thought he was. I watched the playoffs. Obviously, he was on Carolina, but maybe I thought he was on Minnesota. But if you gave me 20 guesses to guess which team he was on, I would have never guessed Seattle. But yeah, his career has taken a turn for the worse. He's coming off $4 million contract. He's obviously not going to get $4 million. He just needs to reignite his NHL career. He is 29 years old, so he's still young. I feel like a lot of these unrestricted free agents are about late 20s or really early 30s, and that's sort of an improvement from guys like Eriksson and Beagle and Roussel if they move on from him. Those are much older, mid to late 30 players. These are sort of young. Their NHL careers on thin ice, so they need a place to play. I mean, that's one of the good things about Arizona is you'll play, and you'll play a lot. Just like Travis Boyd. Couldn't really get ice time on Washington or Toronto. Came to Arizona, got some good top 6 minutes. Really excelled, had a career year, and then signed an extension. So a lot of these guys could look to Boyd to reignite their career. So yeah, Victor Rask, good, fourth line, third line centerman, bit of an older guy, maybe teach, Nathan Smith, Jack McBain, Barrett Hayden some things about, the center ice position. Thinking about their center depth, Boyd, Hayden, Smith, and McBain, they're all pretty young. So kind of need to get older down the middle here. So that's why I have Tuukka Rask. You have Chris Tierney, who's currently on Ottawa. He was making $3.5 million. He might be a hot commodity, but he's kind of an underrated, unknown type of player. Plays hard. Bottom 6. I remember him from San Jose. He was in the Erik Karlsson trade. Maybe teams would go after a bigger name than Tierney. Not sure if he expects a raise from $3.5 million. He had 18 points in 70 games played with Ottawa. So obviously more of a bottom 6 guy, another centerman. I would like that pickup if he would be interested in joining the Coyotes. That would be a pretty big pickup. I think on this board, probably next to Ruda, that would be a great pickup and a pretty well-established NHL player to acquire considering their situation and all. Tyler Pitlick has to resign. I'm betting money on it that Bill Armstrong's going to resign Tyler Pitlick because that was one of Bill Armstrong's first signings as a Coyotes general manager. He got Tyler Pitlick. He wanted big bodies. He wanted that cactus type player. He signs Pitlick to 2 years, just north of $1 million. Then we lose him in the expansion draft to Seattle, who they flipped to Calgary. He barely plays on Calgary. Got traded to Montreal. He had 3 points in 14 games for the Canadiens. I would welcome Pitlick back. I'm sure he liked his time in Arizona. It's a new coach who was playing under Rick Tocchet, so now he'd be playing under Andre Tourigny. Bill Armstrong did sign him, so he has to thank Bill Armstrong for that, to give him a couple $1 million. But, the fans liked him. He had one of his better seasons career-wise with the Coyotes. I liked him. I would welcome him back. There's a lot of other former Coyotes on the market, a lot. Let's go. We got Johan Larsson's an unrestricted free agent. You got Max Domi, Connor Murphy, Archibald, Hinostroza, Cousins, Stepan, Richardson, Wedgwood, and of course Darcy Kemper. So Coyotes are not going to get Kemper, but out of them I would bring back Pitlick. Wedgwood. If you go back to Wedgwood and Vejmelka, it's kind of the same sort of story there. I would rather have a veteran goalie behind Vejmelka than Wedgwood, but a lot of fans like Wedgwood. I would welcome him back. But, my preference would be just a better, more solid backup goaltender than Wedgwood. He had a great year with the Coyotes considering the tear-down rebuild. Managed to get us a third-round pick. So, and he said he loved it in Arizona and his family loved it. So maybe there's a chance Wedgwood comes back. You got Noel Achari, who's a centerman on Florida. Kind of fell through the cracks there. The Florida Panthers are stacked in terms of their forward core. He scored 20 goals, I think, with Boston a couple years ago. And, he's 30 years old. He had 8 points in 20 games played with Florida. Florida's ready to move on from him. They're not going to re-sign him. He was getting $1.6 million. So maybe, slightly lower than that. But, another depth centerman, a bit older, 30 years old. So sort of becoming a veteran in the league would be a solid pickup. You got Martin Ferk. No vowels in his last name. He was most recently with the LA Kings, playing in their farm American League team, the Ontario Reign, where he lit it up. He had, let's see here, where is it? He had 40 goals, 33 assists in 70 games played, 58 games played, Jesus. He had 40 goals in 58 games played, Martin Ferk did, obviously in the American League, but for me, I want the Tucson Roadrunners to get back to being competitive and be a playoff team down there. But he could also make the jump to the Coyotes, give him some depth around there. He's also 28 years old. He's got a wicked slap shot. I think one of the hardest in the American Hockey League for sure. I'm pretty sure he won that slap shot competition. But, you also got to look at adding players for the Roadrunners. They got to be a better team next year. I know their roster got depleted by all the injuries the Coyotes had and pulling their players up to the main stage. But, that's a good guy. Could go back and forth between both teams. And it's just another depth piece. He doesn't make too much money. He makes league minimum $750K. So that's sort of an okay signing. And then for the two defensemen, Goodbranson and Ruda, I know people would cringe at the last name Goodbranson, but I need a big body on the back end. We need it. We're missing that. It's a glaring problem. The Coyotes are really soft in front of their goalies, are clearing the crease, just terrible. They need a Grossman-type defenseman, and Goodbranson, he's 6'5", 217 pounds, making $1.95 million, 30 years old, so he's not too old. You might think he's really old, but he's only 30 years old. I just would love him on the back end, a big body, give some intimidation on the back end, because no one on our back end gives off that intimidation factor. And then underneath is Ruda. It's pretty much, a pipe dream scenario. He's playing on Tampa Bay. He's 6'2", 200 pounds, making $1.3 million. I'm sure because he's been on Tampa Bay, his ticket price will go high. I don't know I'm pretty sure he was on the Stanley Cup winning team last year, but, I'm sure he's a very marketable big defenseman that other teams will go after. But, if the Coyotes could land Ruda, that's a big body D-man who knows how to win, been around the Tampa Bay Lightning, that'd be a great acquisition, I would say. Ruda and Tierney, those would be great acquisitions, I think. I think they would really help the Coyotes just, not fix that culture, but continue to cultivate that new culture and just intimidate people and work hard and play that hard style type of hockey. And then for goalies, Thomas Greiss is a former Coyote. You got Halak, Greiss, and Phoenix Copley. Phoenix Copley, he's struggling to make a stamp on the NHL. He's been playing the past few years with Washington and their American Hockey League team, the Hershey Bears. What's interesting is that he was in the St. Louis system 7 years ago in that Troy Brouwer trade. So he was drafted by Washington, traded to St. Louis, where obviously Bill Armstrong was assistant GM in St. Louis. So Bill Armstrong's sort of familiar with Phoenix Copley, and his first name is Phoenix. So it's kind of a match made in heaven there. But yeah, again, he's not a veteran, calm, solid goaltender. He's just looking to play somewhere, get some minutes, and prove that he demands to be in the NHL. He hasn't done that yet. And, he's only $1 million, and they can bury that in the American Hockey League. You'd have Prosvetov, Tendek, and Copley on the Roadrunners. That seems pretty good. But yeah, you got Halak and Grice. Grice had terrible numbers with Detroit last season. 3.66 goals against average and .891 save percentage. Miserable numbers. Not sure if he would want to come back to Coyotes. He kind of left on a sour note. I remember the last season with the Coyotes, they were pushing for a playoff spot, and the Coyotes weren't really interested in playing him too much. They didn't have faith that they would clinch a playoff spot with Grice. They were going with Smith a lot, or maybe Smith was injured. This was a really long time ago. But I remember Grice complaining that he wasn't getting a lot of minutes to clinch the playoff spot and not getting confidence in the coaching staff to put him in those big games. And he always mentioned he wanted to play big, important games. And so that's why he left. I doubt he'll come back. But, with those terrible numbers, you take what you can get, I guess. And Halak had a bit of a seesaw, year with the Vancouver Canucks. That is a veteran goaltender who could take a lot of games from Vejmelka and, could be solid in net, could have his weak games too, but he's not going to take you to fourth or fifth place in your division. He's not that good of a goalie to win you so many games to threaten a high chance at a draft pick. But to be honest, I think the Coyotes, their next goalie is going to be from a trade. I think they are going to try and get Mrazek from the Leafs. Obviously, the Leafs will have to sweeten that deal, add in a draft pick to acquire Mrazek. They're in cap trouble, and they need to retool their thinking there and try to make another push for the Cup. And then you have Vegas, who, they're still looking to ship off some players. I think the Coyotes would be interested in getting Brossoit from Vegas. They have Logan Thompson, who's like a young up-and-comer. He won a lot of games down the stretch for Vegas, so I think Vegas would go with Thompson and Leonard as their duo. It's cheaper than Leonard and Brossoit, so I think got to shut off some cap. So I think the Coyotes will get Brossoit or Mrazek. If neither of those happen, those are three goalies I think that could cover that backup position if they decide to walk away from Sattery or Satiri. That's it. It's a long video, almost 30 minutes. That's it. Let me know what free agents you want to acquire. Obviously, these guys aren't going to go for big ticketed free agents. That's why I don't have Bergeron on here. You know how it is. You got to temper your expectations here if you're a fan of the Coyotes. So that's it for me. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.